Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unlocking what is literally the ultimate ancient survival manual for your body. We are diving straight into the Vedic texts to decode their incredibly structured rules for food, timing, and health. And honestly, the way this is laid out makes it so easy to understand, it's like a biological cheat code that even kids and teenagers today could use to completely optimize their energy. We're going to look at food not just as basic fuel, but as a highly advanced, dynamic technology. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that might totally surprise you. What do you think ancient Indian air pilots ate to stay absolutely focused up in the sky? Now, you might be picturing, I don't know, a handful of basic grains or whatever they could forage, right? But texts like the Vimanika Shastra actually lay out dietary rules for pilots of complex flying machines, called Vimanas, that sound exactly like the scientifically engineered diets we give to modern astronauts. No way, right?
But just look at this text. When fresh food wasn't an option during those intense, high-altitude flights, these manuals didn't just tell pilots to tough it out and go hungry. Instead, they recommended cooking essential nutrients down into highly condensed food balls or incredibly potent essence extracts. It's basically the ancient equivalent of slamming a modern protein bar or a super-concentrated vitamin shot, engineered specifically to keep a pilot's brain and body at absolute peak performance.
So let's break this down. Level 1. Ancient Food Science Explained. To really grasp how they built such an advanced biological manual, we have to look at how these early thinkers viewed the world. They didn't have microscopes or clinical lab trials, so Vedic science relied on intense, careful observation of nature. They treated the human body as a miniature reflection of the entire universe, this macro-micro link. Think of it like playing an RPG video game. You drink a specific potion, and your character's stats instantly change. That's how they saw food. Everything you consume directly alters your internal energy. It physically shapes your reality and your health. This brings us to a really fascinating concept called apurva. Apurva teaches that eating the right things isn't just about, digesting vitamins. It actually writes a sort of biological code, an unseen potency that produces tangible, positive results in your future. It's a literal cause and effect system. If you follow the right dietary actions today, it automatically generates a healthy state tomorrow. No magic required, just built-in biology. Moving on to level 2. What exactly is on the menu? If eating correctly is basically programming your future health, what exactly is fueling this human machine? Well, the ancient food manual, the Ashanakalpa, breaks down the ultimate diet into 5 superior types of wholesome food. You've got your cooked rice, gruel, cooked flour, and baked flatbreads. But notice that very last one, preparations made from essence extracts. The text constantly emphasized that extracting the pure concentrated nutrients out of a plant gives you the absolute strongest dose of immunity and life-sustaining power. The Atharva Veda gets incredibly specific here, prescribing a highly optimized diet rich in rice, barley, sesame, and lentils. And they weren't just eating this stuff because it tasted good. These specific ingredients were calculated to act as a literal biological shield against sickness and toxins. Barley, for sure, is repeatedly praised as the ultimate, foremost food for vitality. But the real genius is how they categorize these foods. They realized everything you ingest falls into 3 modes. Think of Sattva as your brain food. It boosts your intellect and keeps your mind clear. Rajas is your energy drink food that gets you active and moving. And Tamas is heavy, dense matter. You know that sluggish food coma feeling you get after eating a massive, heavy meal? That's Tamas. They figured out that matter, energy, and thought are completely interconvertible through digestion, which, when you think about it, sounds wildly similar to modern physics.
All right, level 3, the crunch factor rules.
It turns out how you chew is just as critical as what you chew. The Ayurveda gives us a highly specific, mechanical breakdown of how different food textures are meant to work out specific parts of your mouth. Think of this as a complete gym routine for your face. You eat fresh, hard fruits to train your front teeth. Soft, ripe fruits are specifically for working the jaws. Very soft foods are designed to protect the gums, and you need hard nuts to exercise those molars.
Chapter 25 of the Ayurveda spells this out clearly. They literally treated the human mouth like a complex machine. And what happens if a machine isn't used properly? It breaks down. By making sure your diet had highly varied textures, they ensured that every single gear and lever in your mouth stayed strong, healthy, and perfectly calibrated.
Which brings us to level 4, perfect timing for meals.
Because knowing what to eat and what texture it should be is really only half the battle. You have to time it right. Ancient Indians broke the day and night down into Yamas. These are precise 3-hour blocks of time. This wasn't just a random way to tell time. It was perfectly synchronized to match the exact duration it takes the human body to process a stage of digestion, matching up with your natural metabolic rhythms.
And here is how that schedule actually breaks down. Basically, your job dictated your fuel intake. An ascetic, or monk, spending the day in quiet meditation required only 1 meal. A regular family man needed 2. Laborers doing heavy physical work, they needed 4. But remember those high-flying pilots we talked about earlier? They needed an incredible 5 meals spaced perfectly throughout the Yamas just to maintain that absolute mental focus and physical endurance in the air.
Let's look closely at a standard routine for a second. According to Lala's diet rules, a regular family man would optimize his digestion by eating right around the 6-hour mark of the day. That's the end of the second yama. Then, his second meal would be at the 3-hour mark of the night. This perfectly spaced out the digestive process, making sure the body wasn't overloaded with that heavy, sluggish Tamas energy while they were trying to sleep or work.
And finally, level 5, beating seasonal sickness.
So how did ancient people prepare for the ultimate boss battle? Seasonal sickness. I mean, how did they handle sudden shifts in the weather without a modern pharmacy down the street? Well, the texts identified exactly 25 maleficent, poisonous forces known as Bidadini. You can think of these as biological vulnerabilities tied to seasonal changes and lunar cycles. When the weather changed, these 25 forces essentially went on the attack against your immune system. To defeat these 25 poisonous forces during massive seasonal shifts, ancient societies created something absolutely brilliant. They formulated Prashad, special, highly specific medicinal foods and curative extracts. Instead of just crossing their fingers and hoping people stayed healthy, they actively engineered foods specifically to preserve the body against environmental stress.
This was basically the ultimate public health hack. Check this out. First, they observed local climate shifts. Second, they formulated a local prashad using local herbs and grains to counteract that specific weather change. Third, they distributed it freely to absolutely everyone during local temple festivals. And finally, by doing this, they automatically regulated the entire community's immune system.
They literally cooked seasonal antidotes directly into tasty festival foods. It wasn't just some nice religious tradition. It was a highly calculated scientific system of using available local biology to counteract the physical stress of environmental changes. They made sure that even the poorest members of society received the exact preventative medicine they needed to survive the changing weather, all disguised as a delicious treat.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap on how to master this ancient playbook. You have to match your food intake to your specific energy output. You must time your meals using those 3-hour yamas to optimize your digestion. You need a mix of hard and soft textures to literally exercise your facial structure. And you should consume seasonal, locally formulated foods to boost your immunity against climate shifts. It's all about treating your diet as a strict science of cause and effect.
The overarching theme here, beautifully captured in these texts, is that food was never just about simple survival. By combining specific grains, extracts, and timings, food became the ultimate technology. It was utilized to elevate your physical fighting strength and, equally importantly, your intellectual power.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If these ancient observers could map out a biological survival manual this detailed, complete with astronaut-style food balls, specialized jaw workouts, and community-wide medicinal hacks, all without a shred of modern technology, what other incredible secrets about the human body are just waiting in these texts to be rediscovered? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to chew on that thought.